So here we are on turn 12 of Maharaja. So, a few interesting things are starting to happen here. First of all, the Muslims have a restriction on where they can collect points and grow population, only in southern India. So they really do have to swing down very quickly. This turn they're going to get a half point. That'll be enough to get them a unit, assuming they survive, which will go here. But they definitely have a difficulty in getting where they want to go. Now, other actions. Sangha Rajput leader. Well, the Rajput are gone. They got wiped out last turn. And this is really sad. Not only do they have a leader this turn, which they have nowhere to put, but they also would collect victory points this turn. So it was a pretty big hosing, I would say, to wipe them off the map. Now, they were so weak already, but I'm not sure that they're that easy to keep in the game, as they historically were this late. Who else? Akbar, Mughal leader. Now, the Akbar comes in with a pile of Mughals and a major invasion. That's a good way that they're going to show their dominance, probably, of northern India at this point. Again, historical. Portuguese are going to get replacements. If they lose their units, they come back in the Arabian Sea. They also get Albuquerque. Although historically they hadn't done this well before they had Albuquerque. A couple Dutch and a couple British show up. And we're seeing the Western European powers beginning to really become more and more involved in India. And they are good little point generators, as we see with the Portuguese. Of course, they may start fighting with each other. Alright. We see the Muslims throwing themselves into Delhi and wiping out some Mughals there, and also into Orissa and wiping out the Portuguese factory there. This is just not so much an attempt to be nasty to Green, who's not doing terribly well, but there's no really better use for their forces at this point. Marathas picked up a victory point by killing some Muslims, but Mughals, but the Muslims don't really get anything by doing this. They just have this overwhelming amount of troops that they could not get into South India where they want them, and they wanted to get them fairly close, and they might as well cause somebody some pain. Okay, well, we did the Mughal major invasion, and I can't say it went as well as one would have hoped. Akbar was killed down in Berar. The Muslims are going to get to score some points off that. They swept and gained a lot of control. They got Raj points, but it just feels like they lost a decent number of units, didn't gain as much, didn't kill as much as maybe they could have or should have. I'm not sure why. So the Portuguese attacked up here in Andhra using Albuquerque. Their hope was to kill a Muslim. They didn't. Otherwise, they could have just given a factory in Bengal. And they built their factory here. That's their third factory. Good for them. The Dutch follow up. They gave a factory to their Sinhalese, gave them armaments to help protect it, and made an attack here in Sindh, which succeeded. They grabbed a factory, and one in Bengal, which did not succeed. And the British ended things by landing and taking Bengal and building a factory. They were debating whether to go take Kerala from the Portuguese and allow the Chola to move down and become their defenders. The problem here is you've got the Sikhs coming, who they really want to give the weaponry to. The Chola don't grow anymore, so giving them the weapon seems like a mistake. So following the more historic pattern seems more reasonable. We move on to turn 13. I've got some points to distribute. The Mughals are getting 1. I think that's it. So here we are at the beginning of turn 13, which is a victory point turn. So I may go into it in a little bit of detail. We'll see. We got some interesting things showing up. First of all, there's a leader for the Maharaja who will come in during their turn, and then we have the Sikhs are going to show up kind of springing out of nowhere in Lahore up here, which is pretty empty, so it's not that big a deal. If it wasn't empty, whatever's in there I think is destroyed. Most of these games allow you to retreat, but I think this one does not. The Mughals are going to get another leader, Almika. We have the French showing up, and more English showing up. Only the Marathas are going to have boats, and not the Muslims anymore. Sort of a switch of who's the more I don't know, technologically advanced or whatever. Notice one thing. Oh no, I was going to say the Muslims no longer have guns, but they haven't had them yet. They're French allied. So yeah, that's about it. Okay, so I moved most of the native cultures. Let me see what we got here. Sinhalese kind of bottling themselves. This is worth nothing to them, but it gives them increased population, so they want to keep it, and they've moved to the areas that are valuable to them. Sikhs showed up. Now they're not eligible for armaments or factories or anything like that. They probably want to attack Sind, but they're grabbing their victory points right now. It makes me regret not having tried to make an attack with the Chola down into that Portuguese factory. Then we ran up to the Muslims, and the Muslims have pulled back almost completely. They attacked their own Maratha here, and ended up killing one, just because they want a faster expansion southward. They could have pulled out, I guess. The Maratha have connected up, and both won at Golconda. Both won all of the areas the Maratha are in. But the biggest thing the Muslims did was pulled about 4 guys into Andhra and attacked Albuquerque there. Now, their 4 guys were wiped out in one die roll, basically. Good rolls, leadership, better weapons, whatever. This is what the Portuguese roll was. This is the factory. It only hits on 5s or 6s or whatever. It might have been 4 5s or 6s with Albuquerque, I'm not sure. But actually she only had 3 dice, which I think means a Muslim survives. The Muslims managed to kill 1 Portuguese, and they get nothing for that. They were hoping to kill Albuquerque. He's worth a couple of points, destroy the factory, do all kind of cool stuff. Why? I mean, Green's not really in the lead, so it seems kind of silly, but it's where they want to be, and that's one of the things with this game. There is a significant reason for you to want to be somewhere, so it's not just like History of the World where you run out and hunt down the leader who happens to be in one of many places that could be valuable to you. You've got to make a real choice here if you're going to try to hunt the leader, and it's not even clear to me who the leader is at this point. Okay, so on the Mughal turn, they swung through, knocked the Dutch out of Sind, knocked the British out of Bengal. Granted, their territory is kind of disrupted. I mean, they pushed the Sikhs out of Delhi, but you know, they're not connected in a good manner. But they had enough to get Raj points. Nobody's submitting to them, so I don't know. You know, it's pretty tough you really have to own the entire board to get the 3 or 4 point victories. 4 point victory, you have to own the entire board. And that's not easy at all. Okay, so on we go to the European powers. The Dutch don't get a turn. I think they're out of the game except for their factory. In fact, now they're out of the game. The French, on the other hand, landed here, destroyed the Dutch factory, killing the Sinhalese, and they set up factories on all the coasts, as it were. They gave armaments to the Marathas with the thought that they're going to have the harder time fighting their way north than the Muslims are filling the vacuum in the south. Hard to tell for sure there, but we'll see. And now we're on to the British, and that will end things there. The Brits took an audacious turn, actually, and I'm not sure why they did it. They could have landed at Malabar for free and built a factory, but they landed with 1 unit up here at Baluchistan. We'll just say this is me not noticing what's going on the map very well. And that got wiped out by the Mughals. They also landed 3 armies down here to attack the Muslims, wiped out the French factory, and built one of their own. So they get 2 sea areas. The French are going to have 2 sea areas. But they certainly could have had an easier time either at Malabar, which would have given them the Arabian Sea, and that's where they should have gone, or Kerala. Of course, most of the times when I play this, there's at least one new player who misses something like that, or somebody who's not entirely attentive like me. So it's not that unreasonable that it would happen in a solitaire game either. I'll let it go. So after scoring the total points for this turn, Blue picked up 18 points. Yellow got 2, and they're no longer even in the lead now. I think given that they only have the Sinhalese, and they can produce at most 4 points on their, next victory point turn, on the last turn, they're out of this game. 4 points isn't even going to get them the 76, or the 78. Purple. The Brits only pulled 6 in. Chola are worth 1. Brits weren't worth much. Sikhs aren't worth all that much. They've got to start doing a lot more clever play with their Brits. They really screwed up with them in this one. And finally, we had a 32-point gain by green. The Mughals are kicking butt. And the Portuguese have maintained their 3 factories. So at this point, I would say blue and green are completely at war. Purple's probably going to try to be picking off with their Brits and their Sikhs what they can point-wise. And yellow is resigned to having lost the game already.